Well, I promised y'all an update, and it is so much worse than any of us was expecting. Howdy folks, if you remember from the last stream I did, I kind of had an awkward pause, stepped away for a few minutes, maybe a little bit more than was natural. And I came back and I told you all that I had gotten an email from my flight, American Airlines, basically saying it was delayed, and I told you all that, I kind of finished the stream a little bit early, wrapped it up, and told you I would update you on how bad it was. Turns out, very bad. Very, very bad. Way worse than anyone was expecting. For multiple reasons, including the global issue that you may or may not have heard on. I was ground zero of that thing. So, the story starts, we'll skip dates, we'll say it was Thursday morning, around 3 a.m. my time. Our flight was leaving 6 or 7 a.m., so plan was leave, 3 or 4 a.m., drive to the airport, get on the flight, be ready for our first flight, and then that flight would go to a layover site. Layover would go to our final destination. Altogether, that final destination would land, let's say, 2 p.m. and the destination's time, and then driving from the airport to my parents' house. Let's get it around 4 or 5 p.m. That was the day I'd planned. Took off a day of vacation for that. So, 3 a.m., or actually it was around midnight or 1 a.m. when I got that notification. My flight had been canceled. They had me rebook a new flight. So I think that was the update that I thought was going to happen, was I got the message, my flight was canceled, rebooked a new flight, and it's like, how bad is the rebooking flight? The rebooked flight was not horrible. In fact, it was arguably a little bit better than the flight I had originally booked, because the rebooked flight, instead of leaving at 7 a.m., was going to leave at 7 p.m. That means that I don't have to take a vacation day. I can work through the day. Would be nice if I had, communicated that to my team that I was going to work instead of taking a vacation day, but that's what happened. So I decided to work that day and then leave a little bit early to take the flight. You can imagine I was a little bit tired because I was not preparing to work, but we made it. Lots of other things came up, but hectic day, on my feet all day, and we made it to the airport in time to take our 7 p.m. flight to the layover site. Now, when we got there, our flight was delayed. In fact, they put us on the plane and then decided we were going to be delayed a little bit. So they deplaned us for only about 20 minutes, but still, on the plane, off the plane, back on the plane, and then we finally left. Now, I should mention, this will come up a little later, the reason that our first flight, the reason that flight was delayed is because the destination airport had some big storms. So I don't know why they canceled my original flight that was not going to go through storms and decided to rebook me through a place with storms, but that's what happened. So, the rebooked flight was then delayed, but we made it okay. We land in the layover destination. We've got 15 minutes to catch our next flight, but we figured, okay, it's probably fine because if our flight was delayed because of storms, probably everybody's flight was delayed because of storms. And I got the text on my phone saying the gate change, XYZ. We sat in the runway for a little bit. It kept postponing our flight a little bit, and when we finally got out of the plane, it said we had 15 minutes to catch our flight. We run. I should also mention that I was wearing my work shoes. I'm an engineer, so my work shoes are steel-toed boots. They look like nice dress shoes, but the caps are steel-toed. So we're sprinting through the airport, and I'm just worried that some poor kid is going to step in front of me and I'm going to snap their ankles with my steel-toed shoes. But nothing happened. Just sprinting through the airport. We made it to our gate. We get there right as it says boarding, and then, the board gets delayed. Now flight's leaving at 10:30, then flight's leaving 10:45, flight's leaving at 11, flight's leaving at midnight. Flight kept getting postponed, and we felt kind of silly for running around. And we didn't want to leave because, of course, the airline's never going to be straight about how long the delay is. They're just going to keep postponing it every 15 minutes or half hour for the next 15 minutes or half hour. We found out the reason our flight was delayed was because the flight attendants were stuck on a previous flight. So, I think they were coming in from Miami, they were going to come to our airport, and they were going to take us from Miami to Houston. Houston was our final destination. Finally, the flight attendants come in. It's probably around midnight at this time. Everyone starts to clap like they were veterans coming home from service, active duty. I guess most of y'all Europeans, you wouldn't get that reference. But they started applauding them like they'd really gone through an ordeal and were finally going to take care of us. So we're excited. They finally tell us what's going on. They said we were stuck in the plane from Miami. We're boarding. We're going to give the plane a real quick check, and then we're going to get out of here. We were definitely delayed. Maybe we're coming in 3 or 4 a.m. at this point, but that would have been, okay, inconvenient for my father who was going to pick us up, but manageable. I should mention, while we are waiting there with our flight crew ready, the flight next to ours, their flight crew has been ready. And their flight crew, as we're sitting there, we hear a groan go through the members sitting in the waiting area. And then a few minutes later, their flight crew comes and says, I know you all have just received a notification that the flight was delayed until 3:30 in the morning. Don't worry, I have no idea why you got that notification. It's probably an error and we should be boarding in just a few minutes. And then, 5 minutes after she made that announcement, she said, yeah, actually, your flight will be leaving at 3:30. The reason for that is because their destination airport, they were going to Baltimore or something like this, and in Baltimore, their runways were all closed until the morning, like let's say 6 a.m. So basically, they couldn't depart until 3 a.m. That way, they land at 6 a.m. when the runways are back open. Felt very sorry for all the Baltimore people, but in my heart, I was like, whew, bullet dodged. It's not me. We're going to get home in time to make it to my friend's wedding. That's why I was heading back to Houston, to make it to my friend's wedding. Our flight attendants wrap up. They start boarding us on the plane. I think, all right, we've been through such a hassle. We went through original flight rescheduling, changing our destination airport, by the way. There's 2 airports in Houston. They switched us to the other one. So rescheduling our initial flight, delays on our first flight leaving, delays on our second flight leaving, delays on our crew getting there. But we're ready. We're in the plane. We're ready to go. We get on the plane. The captain says we need to sit and think a minute because apparently the runway that we usually take to Houston, I guess it's a larger plane, so we use one of the larger runways at Houston. And he said that runway is closed, just like the folks at Baltimore who had to wait till 3:30 in the morning. He said, but don't worry, there's a smaller runway. We should be able to land there, but we need to give our engineers and technicians a few minutes to calculate that, cross the T's, dot the I's, double check the math, and make sure that we can land there A-OK. So we sit there, restlessly, waiting. And the captain says, it's all right. We're good to go. As soon as he says that, the lights turn off, the flight attendants come by, putting everybody's seat back and their tray down. They start giving the safety speech, make sure everyone's seatbelt's buckled, and our plane starts to go. We hear the engines rev off for takeoff, and then the engines rev back down. Captain says, sorry folks, we're going to need to deplane. We'll explain what happens when you get off the plane. Second time we'd been deplaned that night. This time it's, let's say, around 1 in the morning, I think. So it's close to 24 hours after I had been awake, since you initially heard me on the stream saying something about, oh no, we've got to pay attention to what's going on. So we get off the plane, then we find out that there's some kind of communication issue. He said, apparently all the flights are going to be delayed for now. It's a headquarters-wide IT issue. We're going to sort it out real soon, and then we'll get you guys back on the flight. Flight gets delayed from 12:30 to 1, 1 to 1:30, 1:30 to 2. At some point, I'm checking Reddit, figuring out what's going on. I realize this is not just a problem that is affecting our flight, or even American Airlines. This is a problem that's affecting everyone worldwide. In case you have forgotten about it, by the time you're watching this video, there was a CloudStrike IT issue, which is a security software that is in many devices and pretty much all the Windows devices. They pushed a bad update, which basically caused the blue screen of death, crashing all the computers around the world that are using this software, which I think is most of them. Apparently, it's the biggest IT failure in history, and I'm realizing this as it's unfolding in real time. And the flight keeps getting delayed. Around 5:30 in the morning, the flight finally stopped giving us updates and just said it canceled. We were so close. Another detail I forgot to mention was that we were so close to flying that people who were checking our status on the app to pick us up, my dad, who was trying to figure out, are we coming or when are we coming? He's checking our status. It actually went from our flight was delayed to our flight has left. So that's how close we were. That somebody in the input screen said that, we have taken off, we're in the air, flying toward a destination. That's how close we were to escaping the CloudStrike IT issue, but we didn't manage to escape it. So we're stuck in the airport. We waited in line customer service for about 5 hours. Finally, we got to the front of the desk, and they told us that there were no flights to Houston today, or maybe even the next day. So, gonna miss the wedding if we try to go to Houston. But There were 2 flights available to Austin. For those of you not familiar, Austin is about a 3-hour drive away from Houston. If I were to guess in kilometers, maybe 300 kilometers seems about right. Actually, why not? Let's go to Google and check right now. Alright, I Googled it so you don't have to. Unfortunately, I'm American, so 165 miles. It is about 265 kilometers. That might be slightly different from airport to airport, but that's about the distance we're dealing with. About a 3-hour drive. So that's what we did. My dad, Saint, bless his heart, we flew to Austin. My dad drove to pick us up, and took us back to my parents' house so we could spend the night before the wedding. It's not over yet. Our luggage that was supposed to, I don't know what it was supposed to do. Our luggage didn't go to Austin with us. Our luggage went to Houston Airport, which is on the other side of Houston from where my parents live. This was another 1-hour long trip to pick up the luggage. So we pick up the luggage. It's late, we got it. Still not over. Now, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus right now. You can take from that what you will. Suffice to say, we picked up the wrong luggage. We had blue and a red duffel bag. They had packed a blue and a red duffel bag right next to each other. The red one was ours. The blue one was not ours. They had our blue one on the other side of the baggage corner. But so when we pick up from Houston, we see the red and the blue one, check the red tag, it's ours. I guess we were lazy checking the blue tag, and we just put them both in the car, drove back home to sleep. And then we realized we had the wrong luggage. So we had to go back to the airport, swap them out. I guess the other person whose luggage we'd stolen temporarily, I guess they hadn't arrived yet, so hopefully we didn't inconvenience them. But yeah. So finally, Saturday morning, 2 days after we were supposed to arrive, finally got everything situated. And that was my story of the American Airlines flight. Flight back was the usual level of delays and things like that, so not too much to comment on. And I do want to give props. Everybody who we talked to, every single service representative at American Airlines was wonderful. They made magic happen for us. On one of our flights, the guy looked, the flight to Austin specifically, where we had kind of grabbed those last 2 seats on that flight, he looked at our boarding pass and he tore them up. And I felt this sinking in my feeling, and then he handed us 2 new ones, and it was 2 seats next to each other. So I told that guy to his face, "Man, you are a wizard, thank you so much." And then when we sat down, actually, there was a lady sitting in our seat next to, I'm not sure if it was her boyfriend or her spouse or her coworker, I'm not sure, but apparently we had to get her, she had to change seats because of that. So, maybe not a happy story for them, but I think we had a worse day than them. So I don't feel too bad. My wife and I got to sit together. And they also have great drinks at American Airlines. They've got this really good, like a Bloody Mary tomato juice and Diet Dr. Pepper, which are like the 2 drinks that my wife and I both love. And so again, I don't want to disparage any employees at American Airlines. They did great, but the flying and the logistical situation, for a number of reasons, was a train wreck. So that was the story of Eirias versus American Airlines, and you can judge who won that match. If you enjoyed this Storytime video, you may be interested to know about the story of my first meal in my wife's home country of Poland, and also the time I went to jail. That's the same story split into 2 videos. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one with a regularly scheduled BattleForge video.